Hey, today I'm going to talk about the Godfather Trilogy. This is going to be interesting. First up is The Godfather. This is a 1972 film directed by Francis Ford Coppola and starring Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, and oh my god, so many other people. If you're somehow unfamiliar, the basic premise is it is just after World War II, and it deals with the lives of this Italian-American family that also happen to be a bunch of mobsters. And it's great. I definitely had a really good time with it. I have seen it before, though it's been a decade. I definitely still remembered a lot from it because there's so many iconic scenes. Like pretty much any scene where someone died in it that was burned into my brain. Of course, the opening scene is so iconic. It's definitely without a doubt an incredibly well-crafted film. There's such stunning performances, gorgeous photography, the story is pretty dang interesting, and I do fully, totally recognize its importance within cinema history. This is a ton of influential directors' favorite films, and it definitely has affected cinema landscape over the last 52 years in unmeasurable ways. I will say though, I didn't really connect to it on a deep personal level. It was definitely an enjoyable experience, and like it definitely deserves the #1 spot for the films that I've watched this year. But I don't feel like by the end of 2025, it's going to be even in my top 10. I'd kind of be surprised if it was even my top 20 of the year, just because like it's good and it is an important film within film history, but it just didn't strike a chord with me in the way that so many of the other films in previous years in my top 10 or top 20 have hit me. So yeah, no, I do think it's a really good film, and it's definitely an important film, and if you've never seen it before, it's definitely worth a watch because you will see this film's influence on other films that you love. But I would also say be prepared to it maybe not connecting to you in the way that it's kind of hyped up to. So yeah, no, definitely enjoyed it, and it is worth a watch, without a doubt, but just might not connect to modern audiences the way that it dramatically connected to people back in the 70s. Next up is The Godfather Part II. This is a 1974 film and basically takes place right when the last one left off for the main part of the story with Al Pacino, but then it also has a section with Robert De Niro that is all flashback stuff to Marlon Brando's character as he was growing up. And I remember the first time I watched this one and really loving everything with Robert De Niro, which makes sense. He's one of my all-time favorite actors. He's my birthday bro. But just not caring even a little bit about the stuff with Al Pacino. And so I kind of thought I might get the same reaction this time around. And yeah, I would say that's more or less true. And I think part of it is I'm kind of confused with why this is widely considered to be one of the best sequels ever. Because to me, besides the Robert De Niro stuff, it feels like a rehash of the first movie. Like, it opens and closes the exact same way. It opens with a big party and the Godfather doing requests for stuff. It ends the same way with a bunch of people getting killed. The inciting incident is the exact same of the leader of this family as an assassination attempt. Yeah, sure, this time it plays out slightly differently, but both times it's still in relation to the same thing about like someone being upset about the direction that this family is going. So I don't know, they changed it just slightly, but it really just felt like the same movie to me. And I, again, definitely preferred the Robert De Niro stuff for sure, and I just wanted more of that, but we got such a small amount. Don't get me wrong though, I definitely still enjoyed it. It was a decent experience. Would I recommend it? I would say if you really enjoyed the first one, like if it really took you, then yeah, definitely give this a watch. It's definitely an iconic movie and a much loved movie. But if you were kind of more mixed or neutral on the first one, I don't think this one's really going to turn things around for you, because it is, again, just a lot of the same stuff. I will say Al Pacino does give a really incredible performance, even though I didn't care for his story. If you're a big fan of him, then yeah, it would be worth a watch, but you probably would have enjoyed the first one a good amount. So yeah, it's an interesting film. It just didn't really click for me. I would recommend it, but only if you had a really good time with the first one. And lastly is The Godfather Part III. This is a 1990 film, and it was just made because Francis Ford Coppola needed some money. Fun times. And man, I knew this was gonna be a mixed bag going into it. I hadn't seen this one before, and I did not have high expectations going into it, and did it kind of hit those expectations? How do I even describe this film? So it takes place years later. Michael's kids are grown and they're having their own issues, and there's some other family stuff going on, and it's just, I don't know, I just couldn't be bothered with the plot. I just didn't care at all. I hated Al Pacino's hair in this. Like, this is supposed to take place in 1978, and to me, his hairstyle just screams the 90s. Well, I mean, really it screams you cut off a Barbie's hair. It's just like the fuzz that's left over. Like, what are you doing, man? You do not look like a 1970s mafia Godfather guy. And then you got Sofia Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's daughter. Wow. Wow. She's so bad. She is so bad. I can't comprehend how she is as bad as she was in this. Especially because, like, she's working with her dad. This should be such a natural, easy experience. This isn't her first film. She was in the other Godfather movies. I mean, just as very minor things. But she's been in a handful of other films and projects prior to this. She should have, like, the basics of acting down. I don't even have the words to describe how bad she was. I'm sure people who are actually trained actors could more so break down the nuances of her terrible performance. But hot damn. So yeah, no, I did not care for this film even a little bit. I wouldn't recommend it even as like a morbid curiosity. It's just a really not good experience. Apparently there have been a couple re-edits by Francis Ford Coppola, with his most recent one being like, oh, this is the closest to our true vision. I didn't watch that version. I did this one. I got this as a present like 10 years ago and just finally got around to watching it. But I don't think there's any amount of like slight tweaking you can do to fix the fundamental problems of this movie. So yeah, no, I didn't care for this movie. I don't think I would care for any re-edited versions of this movie, and I don't recommend it. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got The Godfather Part I, sitting number 1 in the really like section. And then after that is The Godfather Part II, sitting at number 2 in the quite like section. And then bringing up the rear is The Godfather Part III, sitting at number 3 in the didn't like section. And this is out of a total of 3 new movies so far this year.